Hello there. This is the third video in a series of four in reviewing this Ruertu device. And as with the other two videos, I'm just going to start off with my disclaimer that I did receive the device from the manufacturer, and I'm not expected to return the device. So I just want to put that out there. But as always, I will be doing a full review, and that will not have any bearing on my review, as I think you'll see, especially as we get into the fourth installment of this series. But in this particular video, this is really kind of a transitional video where we're extending the previous video, which was the visual tour of the device, kind of looking to see all the features and how the device generally performed. This device carries that forward. We're going to look at what a Bluetooth keyboard looks like when it's connected and how that operates. We're going to look at some of the more interesting applications. For example, we'll look at the AI application, we'll look at the meeting notes application, and so on. And then we'll transition into starting the review process with a look at the results of my battery testing and how that compares with other devices. So that is the point of this particular video. So without any further ado, let's just dive right in. All right, let's take a look at a Bluetooth keyboard in action. And to start with this, I'm going to go ahead and turn on Bluetooth, like so. I've already paired this guy, which is my Bluetooth mechanical keyboard. Let me switch it on. And it looks like we're connected. I can swipe down and verify, yes, connected to the Bluetooth keyboard. That's great. Let's go ahead and go into Word, where I'm going to start a blank document. And let's go ahead and work on that font size because I want to make sure it's visible. We'll go to like 16 font. There we go. Okay, I'm going to read out the words as I type, and we can see kind of how the lag is on the keyboard as the result. Okay, here we go. I am starting to type, and you can see the lag. It's not bad. Oops, user error there. But going back to the typing experience. Let's see. What do I want to say? Oh, it's not the best I've seen, but it is pretty good. The lag is slight and not jarring, but it's not the best typing experience either. All right, there you go. And yes, that's exactly how I feel about it. I think this is definitely a usable typing experience. There's a little bit of a lag in there, more so than say like with the Books device, which is just a touch more snappier, but no complaints. This is a perfectly good typing solution. So yes, the Bluetooth typing works, and the same performance can be found if you type in the Notes app. In fact, let's take a look at that. So let's go into Notes, and we'll just go into a blank note. We'll start a text box. And by the way, I can move this text box just by clicking on that. This is about the same as in Word. And there you go. So that is the Bluetooth keyboard in action. Okay, now let's take a look at their ChatGPT app, which is right there. When you log into this, you actually have to log into your account. And you might recall in the previous video, or if you didn't see the previous video, I didn't create a Ruertu account. However, I did have an account with BigMe. I had actually forgotten about that. So when I went into ChatGPT, they asked me for my credentials. Google remembered my password. And it logged me in. And if you go to the Notes app, all my previous notes from the Eink Note Plus downloaded onto this computer. So the plot thickens. So I've logged into this device using my BigMe account, and it all works as if this were a BigMe device. So if Ruertu and Bigme aren't the same company, that would be a bit of a surprise to me. Still possible, still could be a contractual relationship, but yeah, that's just another bit of evidence that this is a subsidiary or something of that nature. Anyway, putting that aside, I thought we'd take a look at this application. And I want to mention one thing before we do. I had mentioned that you could have both text output as well as visual output. You can do pictures. And I thought you could do that on the Bigme device. I'll have to go back and recheck that. But for sure on this device, it is text only. And so we'll take a look at how that works. Okay, so there's two sections related to this application. There is the chat function, which is a conversation that you can hold with the chatbot, and then there's a composition. So why don't we take a quick look at the chatbot, and I'm going to go ahead and do a verbal query. And so let's go ahead and click on that. Give me ideas about icebreakers for a meeting. Whoops, so let me edit that because I picked up my first words. Okay, let's see what happens. So it responded. So let's say I'm kind of interested in number 4. Can you give me alternate questions to number 4? What's another question as an alternative to number 4? Okay. As always, the way it works, it's really important how you structure your queries. That's what determines the quality of the response. Now, what's good about this is that I can then copy this response. So let me go ahead and long press. See, it says copy successful, and I can put that anywhere where I can paste. So we'll put it in 2 places. So we'll go into Notes, just open up a notebook. I do need to go into a text box, so we'll go ahead and click on that. I'm going to long press here. I'm going to say paste. So there that is. And in a similar fashion, I can go into Word. There we go. I can long press here and paste as well. So it's pretty easy to get information out of the AI app and then to paste it in where you can normally paste in text. Let's take a look at the other half of that app, and this is the composition one. And there's no verbal input here, but I'm still connected to my Bluetooth keyboard, so we'll go ahead and put in a request. Not sure if this is going to work. I haven't tried this in advance, so write a I think I pronounced that correctly, or wrote that correctly. Let's see what it does with that. Okay, so it's giving an outline. Let's click on this AI generate. Looks like it's giving a number: performance reviewed in poetic syllables, haikus, honest lens. Interesting. And there's different haikus that it's giving you. Kind of cool. As always, it's I like this one. Words fall on deaf ears, understanding drifts away, clear exchange is sought. Fantastic. I'll be using that one. So it's kind of fun. I think I mentioned in the first video there's a little bit of a gimmick here, but kind of contra to that point is that we are moving into a time where language models like this are going to start incorporating into our work, and learning how to do queries and that sort of thing is important, I think, going forward. So it has some value. It's not a complete gimmick, and we can see how it performs here. So that's basically the general function of the AI ChatGPT app. All right, let's take a look now at global handwriting. And there's 3 modes in global handwriting. We'll go through them one by one. The first mode is a mode that allows you, if you have an application that allows for pen input, it's basically a way of, but it's not optimized for e-ink, like OneNote as an example, which does come pre-installed on this device. How do we write on that and then translate it into the app? And this is what global handwriting is trying to address. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to swipe down, click on global handwriting, turn it on, make sure I'm in this handwriting mode. We'll go with ball pen. I'm going to go with blue as the color, and then we've got 3-point font. So when I write, it's going to write in blue 3-point font, but then it's going to translate into whatever is set for the OneNote app. So we'll take a look at that. So let's go ahead and get into OneNote. Refresh our screen there. Okay, and we're going to go over to Draw. So I'm going to click on this icon. This is within the app. I'm going to click black, so it's going to be a black line. All right, here we go. So you'll notice that the screen, gotta squeeze it in there. Very responsive. Let's go ahead and wait a second. And now it's translated into what the settings were in OneNote. Let's take a look at that again. Okay, that's a blue line. Now it's translated into a black line. So this is how global handwriting works, and it's translated really well into OneNote. In fact, there's one particular thing I think is really fun, which is if I click on the eraser, I'm going to go ahead and do kind of the stroke eraser, or strike through eraser rather, see, and it gets rid of it. And does a pretty good job. Not a lot of artifacts. So that's the first phase of global handwriting in action. All right, so let's look at the second element of global handwriting, and this is for applications that don't allow for any type of stylus input. And so apps like Kobo or Kindle are great examples. These are read-only applications. So what we can do is we can swipe down, click on global handwriting, turn it on, and then we'll select read mode. I'm going to go ahead and take a ball pen and make the color blue. And then I'm going to click out of there. I have the opportunity to kind of name the notebook. You'll see what I mean when we get to it at the end, but I can also just pick this default. And it's giving you instructions on how these arrows work. Let's go ahead and just click on that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and Kobo Books, and now I'm inside a book. Go ahead and refresh the page. Okay, I'm going to write a note. Like so. Now if I just advance the page like I just did accidentally there, the note will carry forward. So I want that note on this page. So in order to secure it, I'm going to click on this down arrow. And the note disappears. And then I'm going to go to the next page, and I want note 2. Like that. I'm also going to secure that by clicking the down arrow. Now I'm done with my annotations. I'm going to click on this 3-line thing, which I think they call a hamburger. I'm going to click on that. And now I'm into the note-taking app, and I'm into a note that has 2 pages. You can see the second page captured my second note, and the first page captured my first note. So it's taking screenshot images and then combining them into this one notebook. And then I have a number of editing features. This is kind of in between the notebook that we saw for split screen functions and then their full featured notebook functions. So this has a little more than the basics. For example, you can do shapes. We've got this more column, so there's a few items we can do here, including like inserting text. But it doesn't have the full length of features as a note-taking app. But this is how you can do annotations on a book. They're not actually ending up in the book, but they're ending up in select copies from the book. So that's the second mode of global handwriting in action. Now I just want to point one other thing out before we continue. And I'll go ahead and, oops, my mistake. Let's go ahead and turn off global handwriting. So if I go into the Notes application, there's this icon right here. If I click on this icon, this window pops up. This is the item on the left is to see your notes related to split screen, and the item on the right is from this global handwriting mode. And there it is, and I'm back in the note. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the third version of global handwriting. Now the third version of global handwriting is pretty simple. It's basically you can just write on whatever you're seeing at that time. So for example, I can't write on this screen now. See, nothing's there. But if I swipe down, turn on global handwriting, go into this picture mode, like that, we'll go ahead with, I guess, red text. I can now write. And then the thought process here is that in order to capture this, I would swipe down and click on screenshot. And there it is. And you could then save it, and then you can save this annotation. So those are the three modes of global handwriting in action. Let's go ahead and turn that off. Now I will make an observation. In the previous video, I talked about global handwriting, and I alluded to the fact that one of the modes wasn't particularly good. And that mode I was talking about was the second mode, the one that we used when we went into Kobo. And the issue actually was I just didn't understand how it worked. I spent a lot of time actually trying to figure it out. And it's only just before recording this video that I went in and it all kind of clicked. And what I showed you, came together and it was clear what was happening. So it does in fact work. That's the good news. The bad news is that the device does not do a very good job, in my opinion, of telling you how it works. I really had to figure it out through search and discovery. But now that I've figured that out, it's pretty cool, right? I mean, I can take any type of really, it doesn't have to be a reading application. I could have done it in Google Notes as well. And I can write any type of annotation and it's saving that annotation. Now you don't have any type of reference ability within the document. So it's not as good, say, if you were doing annotations on a Kobo, the Kobo Ellipsa 2E or the Kindle Scribe. It's not at that level because ultimately you're creating a separate document and they are not connected. But in lieu of that, it's a pretty nice function to have. And now that I know how it works, I actually think this is a pretty neat feature for the device. Okay, I thought we'd take a little bit of a look at this application called Meeting Record. And I just want to say in full disclosure, I'm not sure I'm going to do it justice. Think of this as kind of a survey of the potential with this application. I'm not an expert at it at all. And the reason why I'm not an expert is, first off, I don't use this device nor did I use the Ink Note Plus device in a workplace setting. So that's where I usually have formal meetings. And in fact, in that setting, we use Teams. And so if we do recordings of meetings, that's how we would do that. We wouldn't be using an app like this. But nevertheless, I think this is an intriguing enough app that some people might find use for, and I'll try to introduce it. I just want to be fair that my unfamiliarity with it means that there's probably some things that, output that we'll have from it that may seem off. That's possible that a more experienced user would be able to address. In fact, I'm going to try kind of a unique way of testing this. I'm going to use a YouTube video. This is a video from the channel The Rest is Politics, which is from the United Kingdom. It features individual from that has a past with the Labour Party, with another individual that has a past with the Tory Party, and they have kind of this back and forth conversations and so on. So it's kind of an interesting channel. And so what I like about that in this context is I'm going to have two people that are going to be talking, and then I'll be taking notes as they talk. So I'll be kind of curious to see how that works. So let's go ahead and click on Meeting Record. And we're going to go ahead and start a new one. And basically what this is it's the note-taking app with this kind of meeting record uh, attached on top of it. So a lot of the functionality of note-taking is right from the standard note-taking app, but then it has this recording function, and you can see it defaults to the date and time, but you can change that to whatever you want. And then you start recording. We're going to go into settings in a second. This toolbar is the exact same toolbar that you have in the Notes app. Same with this More button. And you've got extra pages. I mean, everything about it functions exactly like the Notes app, except for this recording function, these first three buttons here. Now let's go ahead and click on Settings. And we're going to start in English, and let's go into mode. This is where it gets interesting. So now, let me clear this out. Now I'm going to have multi-people talk, two people in this case, and I'm going to actually create profiles for each of them. So we'll call this person 1. Okay, and then in theory what's supposed to happen is that you would basically take samples that would identify who that person is. What I'm going to do instead, and I'm going to do this off camera, is I'm going to have them go through, and I'm just going to take, I think it lasts for like 15 seconds. I'm just going to record their voice 2 times for 15 seconds to kind of establish person 1 versus person 2. So that's how we're going to set it up. Let me go ahead and do that, and then we'll come right back here. Okay, we have returned, and I've now established the 2 individuals. I took 2 samples of each. And by the way, this particular video is called The Difference Between Shia and Sunni Islam Question Time. So this is actually a video where they're taking questions. That title is one of the questions they're taking, but this particular section we're about to record is them talking about inspirational world leaders. So we'll see how well the recording identifies person 1 versus person 2. And let me get my ball pen all set up. And yeah, we'll go blue 3 point, like so. Get rid of that. Okay. I'm going to start the video and we'll start recording, and let's have some fun with this.
From James Moon. Gosh, muscles. Which 3 current world leaders would you most want Britain's next Prime Minister to look to for inspiration? I'm not going with Narendra Modi, notwithstanding your book winners.
No, definitely not. I wrote about him as a winning campaigner, not as a winning Prime Minister. Oh my God, that's a hard question. I think my friend Eddie Rama's good. Heading up for a 4th term, and
that's quite a thing to look at the Prime Minister of Albania as the inspiration.
I did preface it with my friend. I think the Prime Minister of Singapore, who's in his last year, I think he's a very, very impressive guy, because Singaporean politics is very different to ours.
Normally you and I would be talking about Macron, and we would be talking about Macron. Why are we not talking about Macron at the moment?
Yeah, Macron. I think Macron has been good. But, he's also, I think we have to say, he's very, very unpopular in France at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think Macron is a sort of leader who's definitely kind of got a sense of vision and good at building teams, and they may break up teams as well, but he builds them again. Oh yeah, there aren't that many, are there? I asked this question actually of...
All right, there we go. Oops, let me turn this off. Okay, let's view the full text here. Let's see what we've captured. So it didn't always capture person 1 and person 2, but it looks like it generally did well. And I'm going to give it a pass on this. And it looks like when it identified role 1, 2, and 3, it really wasn't sure who was talking. Again, I only took 2 samples with each individual, and so the more samples I would have taken, presumably, would have been a bit better in terms of that accuracy. There's other functionalities here. You can do the playback function and you can change the speed. You can also hide this by clicking on that icon. Let's take a look at the summary and see what that looks like. So it's processing. We'll give it a few moments to figure that out. Here we go. No, it wasn't able to do anything with that. If it did do something that was a good summary, I could have sent it off as a text or as a PDF. Let's view the full. We've already seen that. Let's click on polish and see what that does. Looks like it creates a brief summary of it, because that's quite a bit smaller than the transcript as a total. And of course, as you noticed, as this was going on, I was writing notes. Let's see if we can refresh that. Not sure where the notes went. There we go. So yeah, there it is. Again, this is not a review of this application, because I feel like this needs a lot of attention to try to understand the nuances of it, getting people calibrated. But it is an intriguing idea that you can take a recording, differentiate between the different individuals in the room, and then do a transcript based upon that. So, and then in conjunction with notes. So pretty interesting. All right. Actually, one more thing on this. After I turned off the recording, I was curious and I started playing the audio feedback. Let's go ahead and do that briefly and take a listen. Oh, here, let me also turn up the volume so it's a little easier to hear.
Which three current world leaders would you most want Britain's next Prime Minister to look to for inspiration? I'm not going with the retro mode, notwithstanding your book winners. I wrote about it really frightening.
So what was happening basically as I started to write, that's when the audio was picking up. That's all what all that scratching sound was. It's not static. It was basically hearing my writing. And that's why I was having more difficulty identifying which person was talking, because their talking was mixed in with that sound. Not sure if there's a way to kind of, not incorporate the sound of the stylus, or maybe it makes better sense not to write notes while using the app and just do the audio transcript. But I just thought I would kind of share that little quirk since I picked it up. Okay, that's going to do it for now. Normally, watching a YouTube video on an e-ink screen, isn't the best experience, but it is amazing how far the technology has come. And we've seen YouTube videos look, halfway decent on other devices that had Kaleido 3. So I thought I would just, spend a minute. I'm going to play an excerpt from a Midnight Oil concert from 2019, and I've got the speakers going. So we'll play it for about a minute, and you can hear the sound, the quality of the sound, and then you can see how well the video handles ghosting and what have you. Let me go ahead and actually center that a little bit, and let's take a listen. Okay, let me maximize that so you can see the full view. And go ahead and do screen. Oh, we have screen rotation on. Okay, excellent. Here we go. Okay, let's take a look. All right, there you go. That's basically what YouTube looks like, just like other Kaleido 3 screens. I think all things considered, it's pretty extraordinary that e-ink can have this level of quality on a video. It's not great. You definitely see ghosting and what have you, but it's pretty good. The speakers, I think, are a little bit on the tinny side. Those are not the best speakers that I've seen on an e-ink device. But if I was going to listen to something like this on this device, I'd probably be using Bluetooth headphones anyway, and that quality, of course, would be much better. But nevertheless, the speakers, they're all right. But the performance of the video looks pretty good, all things considered. All right, let's start taking a look at the battery drain results for the Ruertu device. I'm listing it here as a 4,000 milliampere hour battery. That's basically the same specifications as the Bigme InkNote Color Plus device, and I believe that's probably the case here, but I don't know it for sure. I've reached out to the manufacturer, and if I find out that this is incorrect, I'll be sure to note that in the next video. But it has a battery size, I believe, that's pretty close. It's slightly larger than the book's Notetaker III, so that's a good comp to keep track of, but I have other devices on this list as well. Let's start off by looking at the standby screen off metric, and this is when the device is, has its wallpaper up, it's turned off, but if you press the power button, you're 1 to 2 seconds away from engaging the device. So it's kind of like a readiness device, but the screen isn't on. In this particular case, the Ruertu had an amazing, in a bad way, 0.32% battery drain. To put that into perspective, and this is per hour, that is the equivalent of over 7.5% drain in a day. So if you had your device ready to go, but you didn't touch it over a 24-hour period, you'd lose 7.5% of the battery life. And it's a lot higher than any other device on this list. The previous worst having been the Notetaker III. So not a good start for this device. Let's take a look at how it handles standby with the screen on. So this is basically meaning the device is ready to engage with at any time. You just need to start tapping the screen or writing with the stylus, but no other activity is happening. So it's just sitting there waiting. And in this case, the Ruertu has a 2.4% drain. It's not the worst that we've seen, but it's pretty bad. And this is a bad sign for the device overall, because this type of battery drain is going to permeate through all the other measurements that we do. In fact, we can see here with the Wi-Fi, we have 2.6%, which is notably higher than all their devices except for the Remarkable 2. So not good battery life on any of these measurements. Let's take a look at front lighting and see if the story changes a bit. First, we'll test full cold front lighting. And as a reminder, or if you're new to my video series, I always test front lighting in full cold, and that's the standard that I use. I actually sometimes test full warm as well, just as a check, and in my experience, the results don't differ from full cold, that the color temperature is irrelevant. But I did check that with this device, and indeed there was no difference as I would have expected. But I just try to put the measurements for full cold here, and for the Ruertu, that is 5.4% drain, which actually is surprisingly good relative to what we saw on the previous screen. It's close to the Kindle Scribe and better than the Notetaker III. So this was an interesting result to see, and it kind of bucks the trends that were suggested on the previous page. Fortunately, that doesn't extend to when the half cold lighting is set, and that drain was 2.6%. The Ruertu is not the worst in this category, but it is notably higher than the other competitors on the list. We're going to close this out now with Kindle or Kobo reading, and this is usually where e-ink devices shine the most, because the amount of drain on reading a novel, which is just text, is usually the least. You're refreshing the page, especially for a 10-inch screen, not as often as with other apps, and it's just an easier test on the battery. And in this case, the device got a 2.8% drain, which is high, quite high, compared to, for example, the book's devices. Finally, we're going to have the continuous note-taking, and this is kind of a test where I began the stopwatch and I literally write and I write and I write until at least 10 minutes have gone by, and then I wait for the battery counter to go down. So the tests vary from 10 to 20 minutes, just depending on how the device is handling the observation. And in this particular case, 10.4% battery drain. As a reminder, for those that have seen this battery testing before, in reality, when you take notes, you're not going to be writing as intensively as this test. So it's not meant to simulate what battery drain you may have when using the notebook, but it is good as a comparison between devices to give a sense of how much each device would drain the battery on note-taking relative to each other. So the Ruertu is at a 10.4, which again, this is another surprise. It actually did much better than you would expect given some of the other observations that preceded it. And it's kind of in the middle of the pack in this particular regard. So a few surprises as noted, but the overall battery drain is not particularly good for this device as these numbers indicate. Okay, just a few last comments about the battery results before we wrap up. First off, in all the testing, any type of battery saving features are usually turned off in the testing, and that's true of all the devices on the list. And indeed, in this case, there was no, auto sleep or auto shutdown. Those were both turned off for this device as well. There was a setting in there that had kind of a performance mode and a power saving mode, and that's an unusual setting. You don't normally see that in these types of devices. I found the performance mode rather, to have high battery drain with, I couldn't discern what the benefits were. So I did all my testing with the power saving mode on. So just be aware of that. Additionally, one of the things I kind of explored is, would the power drainage change if I froze all the apps on the device? So freezing is a function and on this device as well as on Books devices, where applications that you download onto the device can be shut off so they don't run in the background. And so I went ahead and did some tests on that and did not find that freezing the apps had any impact on the battery life at all. So there was no impact from that. And also, I should also point out that I cleared out any applications from running and starting any of the battery tests. So I tried to keep it, and when we focused on front lighting, tried to just isolate it to that front lighting or Wi-Fi and so on. So those results really are trying to measure the true drainage for those various activities, and we saw what those results were. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for this video. The next video in the series, the last video, will be a full-on review. I'm going to go into all the pros and cons of the device. I'm going to talk about this device kind of in context of the marketplace, and I'm going to add a few more additional things to the video as well. So I think you'll find it interesting, and it will be hopefully a great conclusion to this series. So until then, I will see you next time.